Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and let's talk fusions in this one. Let's get some fusion action going on, because this aspect of Dragon Ball, the fusions, has been something that's been very near and dear to my heart. Because this is when I started really getting into Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. Now, I would watch an occasional episode here and there. It's kind of hard to avoid it if you were a kid in America growing up in the 90s. You know, you were going to stumble across Dragon Ball Z at some point. But I didn't start watching it on like a weekly basis, you know, collecting the VHSs until around the Boo Saga, which many would argue that's like the worst spot for you to get started with the series, for one reason or another. But I really love the concept of fusions. I love the concepts of like, okay, combining different outfits and getting like ridiculously strong and like different personalities coming together to make one body. I love that concept, and this is something that's been kind of dropped off ever since Dragon Ball Z. It wasn't really mentioned all that much, not even in GT. In GT, you know, fusions were used, but it wasn't really as prominent. Really up until the final Shadow Dragon arc with you know, Omega Shinron is when it was really brought up. You know, hey, we can fuse, we can still do that. But it wasn't mentioned in any of the newer movies like the Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and it hasn't really had a resurgence in Dragon Ball Super yet. Keyword being yet. If there's one thing I love about Dragon Ball Super, the anime anyway, is it goes back and it references a lot of stuff from Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It doesn't forget that those series occurred. It's not trying to do a complete reboot. It's trying to continue the story, and all these characters would obviously have access to these powers. A prime example of this is in the most recent episode, Dragon Ball Super episode 62, where, spoilers, in order to figure out a way to defeat Zamasu, who is immortal, they, you know, Piccolo brings up the Mafuba. The fucking Mafuba, a technique that hasn't been even referenced or mentioned since Dragon Ball, like over 20 fucking years ago. So, there's no doubt in my mind that fusions are going to be brought up again. In fact, that's what kind of like inspired me to make this video, right? Because they're sitting around trying to figure out, okay, how the fuck are we going to defeat an evil Goku and an immortal freaking Kai? Like, how are we going to do that? And I'm sitting there thinking, fusion! Fusion, you know, Vegeta, Goku, fusion dance. Let's see what Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta has to say about this shit. I bet he has a few things to say to Black and Zamasu. But then I start thinking, they mentioned the Mafuba, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that works too, that's still referencing back, that's a pretty cool idea, no telling if it's actually going to work or not, but thinking outside the box here. But then I start thinking about, like, what a Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta fight against, Goku Black and Zamasu how that would go, and I thought about it for a second, and I'm thinking, you know what? That actually might not be a good idea, because while Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta would probably easily be able to defeat or be on par with Black, you have to keep in mind that Black and Zamasu both have the Potara earrings, so they could fuse as well, and a Potara fusion is stronger than a regular fusion dance one, so yeah, that probably wouldn't end too well. It's more clever to think of the Mafuba, the sealing aspect, than actually utilizing fusion. But I do hope it appears later on, and as well as an appearance of Gotenks as well. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, so let's just talk about how Super Saiyan Gods would work in the fusion aspect, how that would go down. And I'm specifically referring to Vegito and Gogeta as the primary ones. I love Gotenks, you know, and all the other fusions that, like, maybe were game only. Those are cool and everything, but the only ones we really give a shit about, honestly, are Vegito and Gogeta. Now, by the way, Gogeta is a few people might bring up, you know, Gogeta isn't canon, you know, it's not. He only appeared in GT and in the movie Fusion Reborn, which is, by the way, probably my favorite Dragon Ball Z movie, I want to say. Really tough call for that, but I want to say tentative, that's probably my favorite one, is Fusion Reborn. I love Dead Zone a lot too, but let's just go with that. But, you know, even if, you know, it is movie canon or GT canon, whatever you want to call it, if Goku and Vegeta were to perform the fusion dance in Dragon Ball Super, what else? I mean, I don't see them going out of their way to come up with a completely new character and calling him by a completely different name. He would be Gogeta. The fandom knows him as Gogeta. He would be fucking Gogeta, right? Yeah, and you know, so GT, you know, we had Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, which just, you know, that's brings up problems in and itself. That's, you know what? Fine, I'll bring it up right now. Where do you think Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta would place in terms of power. This could warrant a whole discussion video in and on itself, but let's just talk about it now, whatever. But okay, I really would like to see an appearance of Vegito, right? I would love to see Vegito again, but I just don't think that's ever going to happen again, and never again. I don't think Vegeta alone would ever, because the way they got out of that the first time was like a fluke, and I don't think that Vegeta would ever want to do that again. You know, he would ever want to, you know, have a chance to fuse with Goku for an eternity, even if there was maybe some way they could reverse it someday. I just don't think it's going to happen. I miss Vegito. He was a cocky son of a bitch. I liked him. And he was clearly the stronger of the fusions for, you know, obvious reasons, just for the difference of fusions. But I don't think we're going to see him ever again. If we do see a fusion in Dragon Ball Super, it's going to be Gogeta, and it's going to be somewhat of a last-ditch effort. You know, I'm kind of curious, exactly, because Vegeta's sitting there racking his brain trying to figure out a way to defeat Black and Zamos, and he doesn't really come up with anything. Piccolo's the one that comes up with the Mafuba, but he doesn't really come up with anything outside of just, I'm going to go to the hyperbolic time chamber, room of spirit in time, and I'm just going to train up, and that's all I can think of. But maybe he was thinking, oh, maybe we could do a fusion. That won't work, though, you know, for whatever reason. Now, Gogeta is the weaker of the two fusions for a number of reasons. He's not Potara, and it only lasts 30 minutes, so even if they did manage to fuse, that would actually be really fucking tricky if you think about it, considering we're doing this time-hopping thing. You know, like, you would have to either, you know, fuse right before you get into the time machine and then get to the future, or fuse immediately get out, but that would be extremely dangerous to do because of, you know, Black and Zamos. If they're there, you think they would have this, like, ready to go. I mean, this is like the third time they've had to jump to the future. You think Black and Zamos would just be sitting there waiting, and then the time machine pops up, and they'd just be like, okay, fuck you, boom, alright, you're stuck here now. You stop with the time hopping shit. No, they go off to their mountain resort and sip some tea while admiring the flora. You know, that's just such the weirdest thing ever, of them just hanging out on a nice little mountain cabin, you know, whatever. But, yeah, I still think it's a possibility, especially if that Mafuba shit goes south, because Mafuba, that's effective in defeating Zamos, because Zamos is the immortal one. Goku Black, wicked strong, Super Saiyan Rose, but he isn't immortal. Zamos is the immortal one. So, as we've seen so far, in a one-on-one fight between Goku Black and Goku, even with Super Saiyan Blue, even when Goku was, like, seriously pissed off and he had, like, the rage power-up thing going, even under those conditions, Goku Black was still very much the superior fighter there. So, the best way I could see this going down is they get to the future, you know, Trunks manages to hold them off in the meantime, which, by the way, Trunks' power-up, I don't know, it looks a lot like Legendary Super Saiyan to me. I mean, I don't want to open that can of worms, but, you know, for a minute there, he didn't have the pupils like Broly, but I mean, he'd get the pupils later, but whatever, okay. Anyway, Trunks holds off the two, they show up, somehow manage to pull off the Mafuba. I don't know how the fuck that's gonna go. I mean, there's a million and one ways how that could go wrong, but let's just say it goes perfect. Let's just say it works out perfectly, and they manage to seal Zamos with the Mafuba, alright? So now you just have Goku Black. Now, in the wake of this, because I'm sure Goku Black doesn't even understand what the fuck the Mafuba is, you know, even if he does have access to Goku's memories, which I don't think he does. I think it was like a mind swap between Zamos and Goku Black, so I don't think he has memory of the Mafuba. But, you know, so he's shocked, like, holy shit, you just sealed freaking Zamos, and then maybe Trunks can hold off Goku Black for, like, a little while longer, and then Vegeta and Goku use fusion, Gogeta, Super Saiyan God Blue, beats the shit out of Goku Black. I think that would be an effective way, a way of incorporating the elements of the series we know so far. I'm really happy that they don't try to just, they're not, I mean, aside from the Super Saiyan God stuff, which was already introduced in the movie, they're not just, like, churning out, like, oh, by the way, there's a whole new technique that nobody ever talked about before up to this point that should be able to defeat Zamos. You know, like, I'm glad they're not doing that shit. I'm glad they're looking at their inventory of, like, okay, let's look through the entire Dragon Ball series. What kind, like, okay, we need a sealing technique to defeat Zamos. Okay, do we have anything in the way of sealing techniques? Damn it, no, we usually just beat the shit out of characters, and that usually solves the problem. Okay, oh, wait, there is that one that happened way back in the day. Maybe we can bust the dust off that, so I'm glad they're actually being clever with that. And so that's, like, for that reason, I feel like that not in this arc, eventually in this story, the fusions are going to have a resurgence. It's going to be truly the fusion reborn. Aside from the movie Reborn, which wasn't really that much of a reborn because fusion was still very prevalent in the series when they were using that. I don't know why they called the movie that. It was probably just an English thing. But yeah, what do you think about that? What do you think? Obviously, like I said, if Vegeta goes Super Saiyan God, he would be stronger than Gogeta. But I think Super Saiyan God Gogeta would be more than enough of a match for Goku Black. It would be a fucking amazing fight. I want to see that guy again. I loved his outfit. I loved his look. I'd say aesthetic-wise, Gogeta, I probably like Gogeta more than Vegito, aesthetic-wise. I just like the look of the vest, you know, which all the fusion dance fusions gets, and I just love that aspect, other than just Potara, which just, like, combines your clothing together. But no, I can see this going down if they at least use their heads, and I will fangasm so hard if that is actually how it does go. Even if it doesn't, even if they manage to, like, use the Mafuba, maybe they seal both of them away, or if they figure out some other way to defeat. Even if, you know, after Zamos is sealed and Vegeta and Goku just, like, tag team Black, that might also be, and Trunks as well, all, like, just three-way on Black, might manage to take him out. You know, but I would say, like, well, yeah, you could do that, but there's always fusion. It's always on the table, guys. Hey, give it a shot. 30 minutes, you give it a shot, take a shots at Zamos, and then, at Black, and if it doesn't work, you defuse, and then you have all three of you to go and bum rush the dude, and that should probably be good enough, right? Right? But what do you think about that below? What do you think? Do you think fusions will reappear in Dragon Ball Super? Do you think we're going to get to see Gotenks again? If we're going to see Gogeta, maybe Vegito? I find that very unlikely. Maybe any other fusions. I mean, there's a shit ton of fusions if you look at the expanded universe, more than just, you know, Vegeta, Goku, and Trunks and Goten. There's a lot more fusions out there. There was just a game that TFS spotlighted a few weeks ago where it was, like, focused on Dragon Ball fusions. I don't think it's out yet, but that was a pretty interesting premise for a game. I'd have to check into that. But yeah, comment, like, subscribe below. Also, let me know on what you think of the whole power scaling issue between Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and, like, a Super Saiyan God, like, where that ranks up. So let me know below. I'll make some more videos about Dragon Ball Super if you so desire. Tekking101 signing out. Later, guys.